Hello, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Thursday, the 23rd of June. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 120 of the illegal Russian war of aggression, and then I will look at today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. EU leaders will decide today whether to grant Ukraine candidate status following a positive recommendation from the European Commission last Friday. EU leaders in Brussels are expected to sign off on last week's recommendation by the European Commission, which is the EU executive. Russia's TASS news agency is carrying a report that British citizens Sean Pinner and Aidan Aslin, alongside the Moroccan Sadoun Brahim, are preparing an appeal against their death sentences. TASS quotes Pinner's lawyer, Yulia Tserkovnikova, saying, "My colleagues and I are preparing a full text of the appeal against the verdict in the interests of our clients." Russia's Ministry of Defense claims to have killed at least 650 Ukrainian soldiers in the last 24 hours in its latest daily operational briefing. It claims that the enemy continues to suffer significant losses and that it destroyed 49 tanks with fuel for military equipment of the armed forces of Ukraine, as well as up to 50 multiple launch rocket systems. Russian forces are putting the Lysychansk-Severodonetsk pocket under increasing pressure by steadily advancing around the fringes, according to British intelligence. Since the 19th of June, Russian forces have highly likely advanced over 5 kilometres towards the southern approaches of the Donbass city of Lysychansk, according to the latest UK Ministry of Defence report. Serhiy Haidai, Ukraine's governor of Luhansk, has said that Lysychansk suffers from heavy fire from Russian invaders, and there are so many artillery and mortars here that the Russians are simply covering entire neighbourhoods with heavy fire. Numerous casualties amongst civilians, he continued. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has said he believes Russian forces are attempting to destroy cities in the eastern Donbass region in the same way they did in Mariupol. And the governor of Dnipropetrovsk, who's Valentin Reznichenko, has accused Russia of using cluster munitions in the region. The Turkish foreign minister has said that Turkey is taking seriously claims that Ukrainian grain was stolen by Russia and says it is investigating those allegations. Residents and workers at a nuclear power plant in Enerhodar, a city in Ukraine's Zaporizhia region, are being abducted by Russian occupiers, according to the region's mayor. And a television tower in the Ukrainian separatist-held city of Donetsk has been badly damaged by shelling, and broadcasting has been interrupted, the local Donetsk news agency has reported. The Petrovsky Television Centre is still standing, but part of its equipment has been damaged, while some other equipment has been moved out, the news agency said. Ukraine is to hold a preliminary hearing in its first trial of a Russian soldier charged with raping a Ukrainian woman during Russia's invasion, the first of what could be dozens of such cases. The suspect, Mikhail Romanov, who's 32, who is being tried in absentia today, is accused of breaking into a house in March in a village in the Bravarsky region outside Kyiv, of murdering a man and then repeatedly raping his wife while threatening her and her child with violence and weapons. It was not immediately clear who will represent Romanov at the trial, which will be held behind closed doors. The Guardian was unable to reach Romanov for comment, and his apparent partner declined to answer their questions. Ukraine says it is investigating thousands of potential war crimes committed during the Russian invasion, which will mark its 4th month tomorrow. Russian crimes against Ukrainian civilians documented by reporters and prosecutors working in Ukraine have included sexual assault, murder, and looting. A prosecutor working on sexual violence cases told Reuters earlier that up to 50 crimes involving sexual assault and rape were currently being investigated. After a visit to the Ukrainian capital earlier this month, Pramila Patin, who's a senior UN official, said the rape cases under investigation only represent the tip of the iceberg, and she described sexual violence as the most hidden crime committed against Ukrainians in the war, and she urged survivors to come forward. Not a great deal of information is known about Romanov, who has a large bear tattoo on his chest, according to pictures of the accused soldier on social media. During Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he was serving in the 239th Regiment of the 90th Tank Guards and was involved in Russia's failed offensive on Kyiv. When Ukraine first announced it was launching an investigation into Romanov, the country's chief prosecutor, Irina Benediktova, said, "Now we don't know where he is. Maybe he is fighting still. Maybe he is on rotation in the Russian Federation. Maybe he is dead. We don't know, but we want to prosecute him in absentia." The findings of a task force set up to respond to any potential disruption to food security and supply resulting from Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine have been published. The Food Security and Supply Task Force, set up jointly with the food and drink industry, found that while there is a greater strain on the food supply chain than has been seen for many years, immediate supplies of food and animal feed in Scotland are secure. It makes a number of recommendations, including the establishment of a new food security unit within the Scottish Government. Speaking ahead of the opening of Scotland's flagship agricultural show, the Royal Highland Show, the Rural Affairs Secretary, Mary Gudgeon, said that food security was being given greater domestic priority as a result of climate change and an increasing understanding of the global nature of food supply. Ms. Gudgeon added, "The war in Ukraine has sent shockwaves through the global food system, and the impacts are being felt by producers and consumers in Scotland. This has compounded the challenging operating environment caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the hard Brexit imposed on Scotland by the UK government, which has inflicted significant and lasting damage on our world-class food and drink industries, rural and coastal communities." She continued, "We have already taken steps to respond to the situation, including improving business cash flow via our payment strategy for 2022 to ensure farmers and crofters are paid as early as possible. The rapid establishment of our task force, which is the first within the UK, and the creation of a new food security structure should offer assurances that government and industry will be in a position to react as quickly as possible to any future shocks." She finished saying, "I would like to thank all those involved in the task force for their support. It is in this collaborative spirit that we must now move forward." And the Chief Executive of Scotland Food and Drink, James Withers, said, "This report marks a turning point in how we respond to growing food security pressures in this country. New structures, embedded into government, working in close collaboration with the industry, will make food security central to our thinking in future. The new Food Security Unit will be a mechanism to monitor risks, identify ways to increase resilience in food production and supply, and to respond rapidly to emerging issues." A second day of rail strike action is underway after talks to avert the stoppage collapsed in Ranker on Wednesday night. Millions of passengers faced disruption to train services across Great Britain on Thursday as 40,000 RMT members working for Network Rail and 13 train operating companies staged their second strike in a week. Just 1 in 5 trains have been running today, with services only running between 7:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Trains are mostly restricted to main lines, with only about half of the network operating. Passengers are being asked to travel only if necessary. Last night, the head of the RMT union, Mick Lynch, hit out at the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, for wrecking negotiations by not allowing Network Rail to withdraw their letter threatening redundancy for 2,900 of our members in the dispute over pay, working conditions and proposed modernisation plans. Shapps said the RMT claim was a total lie. Network Rail said that the union had walked away from talks. Speaking on Radio 4, Eddie Dempsey, the Assistant General Secretary of the RMT, said that the Network Rail letter would not necessarily stop the union from negotiating. Nevertheless, he also said, What we can't understand is how people from the industry can go onto the media and say, we have no intention of making people compulsorily redundant, but then issue us a letter starting the legal process for consultation on redundancy, and refuse to give us a no compulsory redundancy guarantee, which is the number one demand we have in this dispute. Separately, the Transport Salaried Staff Association announced that its members at Merseyrail have accepted a 7.1% pay offer. In Scotland, train services are affected by the striking RMT members employed by Network Rail. ScotRail is not directly involved in this dispute. And unions and recruiters have condemned government moves to allow agency workers to replace striking staff, saying it would poison relations and endanger safety. The Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, said the government was pressing ahead with a change in the law as rail workers walked out for the second of three 24-hour strikes this week. Some bus workers and nurses are also set to strike, while teachers may take industrial action later this year. Under current employment laws, businesses cannot supply agency workers to fill in for striking employees, which the government now says would lessen their impact on hard-working commuters and the economy. The TUC said it was a cynical and unworkable move, while rail unions dismissed it as playing to the gallery. Network Rail has said most of its roles, which have most affected train services during the strike, particularly signalling, cannot be filled by agency staff. Kwarteng said unions were holding the country to ransom and the situation was not sustainable. Repealing these 1970s-era restrictions will give businesses freedom to access fully skilled staff at speed, all while allowing people to get on with their lives uninterrupted to help keep the economy ticking, he said. The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said, reforms such as this legislation are vital and will ensure any future strikes will cause even less disruption and allow adaptable, flexible, fully skilled staff to continue working throughout. The government is also lifting the maximum damages that can be imposed on trade unions for unlawful strikes, allowing judges to impose £1 million instead of £250,000 charges. The TUC General Secretary, Francis O'Grady, said, the government should be getting people around the table to find a fair resolution to this rail dispute, but ministers are more interested in cynically picking a fight with the unions than reaching a negotiated settlement. Having slammed P&O for replacing experienced workers with agency staff, Grant Shapps is now using the same playbook. These plans are a deliberate attempt to undermine the right to strike and to reduce workers' bargaining power. Joanne Galbraith-Martin, the Director of Employment Relations and Legal Services at the Royal College of Nursing, said, this change would be undemocratic and unsafe. Any industrial action by our members is very carefully planned to keep patients safe. Already bringing in less qualified or agency workers instead could put patients at risk. Britain's economy is starting to run on empty as post-pandemic order books dry up and the highest inflation in 40 years affects business confidence, the latest snapshot of the private sector has shown. Flash estimates of the economy's performance in June showed business optimism at its lowest since the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic in the spring of 2020, and the sharpest drop in new order volumes for a year. The monthly survey of purchasing managers produced by S&P and the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply said overall business activity across the services and manufacturing sectors was unchanged on the 15-month low of 53.1 reached in May. A reading above 50 suggests private sector activity is expanding, while a reading below 50 points to contraction. Demand for labour remains strong despite weaker new business growth, with job creation the highest in 3 months. Chris Williamson, the chief business economist at S&P Global Market Intelligence, said, the economy is starting to look like it is running on empty. Current business growth is being supported by orders placed in prior months as companies begin to report a near stalling of demand. Williams said business confidence in the UK had now slumped to a level which, in the past, typically signalled imminent recession. The weakness of the broad flow of economic data so far in the second quarter points to a drop in GDP, which the forward-looking PMI numbers suggest will gather momentum in the third quarter, he added. Rishi Sunak met with key oil and gas organisations in Aberdeen today to hear about their contributions to the net zero transition and discuss North Sea investment and the energy profits levy, from which the investment allowance is expected to lead to an overall increase in investment in the North Sea sector. While there, he also hosted a roundtable, including representatives from a range of oil and gas companies, to discuss key issues and to listen to their concerns, and also a Treasury Connect session answering questions from staff from oil and gas firms. The SNP has responded to the Chancellor's visit by saying that he has a cheek to say he champions the future of energy in the North Sea. Commenting, the SNP's Shadow Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy spokesperson Stephen Flynn MP said, Rishi Sunak is visiting a city that has bankrolled his government to the tune of nearly £400 billion over the years, but he has failed to deliver tangible support following the 2020 downturn, and he has stalled on support for the just transition. His government has faced repeated calls to match the Scottish Government's £500 million Just Transition Fund to back carbon capture in the North Sea, and to change his investment allowances plan to encourage renewables development. Yet, despite the cash he is counting in the Treasury, he has sat on his hands. The Chancellor has the flexibility because the taxes generated in the North East to properly invest in our net zero future and to put cash in the pockets of families who have been hit hard by this Tory cost of living crisis. His visit to our city must be a turning point. We are the oil and gas capital of Europe, he continued, but we are serious about becoming the net zero capital of Europe, then we must be top of the list for investment. The Chancellor has a cheek to say he champions the future of energy in the North Sea. For too long, his government has siphoned off profits from Scotland's resources while failing to invest in our energy sector and our net zero future. The reality is Scotland has the energy, it just needs the power. The SNP's Fair Work and Employment spokesperson, Chris Stevens MP, is leading a debate in the House of Commons today, urging the Department for Work and Pensions to U-turn on office closures, threatening thousands of redundancies. The UK government plans to close 42 DWP offices, 8 in Scotland, which will put 1,100 jobs on the line. The plans will also see some offices merged and 12,000 DWP staff moved to alternative sites, a move that the PCS union has warned will risk 1,000 more jobs when the changes come into full effect. The Glasgow South West MP previously asked an urgent question if the UK government had carried out economic or equalities assessments on the closures, many of which are occurring in high economic deprivation areas. It failed to answer the question. Commenting, Chris Stevens said, the people who could lose their jobs in this latest round of callous Tory cuts are the same key workers the Tories clapped for during the pandemic. It is a disgrace. These plans to close DWP centres and Axe jobs, many of which are in high economic deprivation areas, fly in the face of the Tories' levelling up rhetoric. 2 of the centres to close are in my own constituency, meaning many of my constituents could lose their jobs in the middle of a cost of living crisis, another Tory mess. Of the 42 closures, the 8 in Scotland are Aberdeen, Ebury House, Kirkcaldy at Victoria Road, Bathgate at Whitburn Road, Dundee at Lindsay House, in Falkirk at Callendar Gate, in Glasgow in Clydebank at Radnor House, also in Glasgow at Springburn, and in Stirling at St Ninians Road. The UK government is taking a wrecking ball through the country's broadcasting and production sector with its reckless plans to privatise Channel 4, according to an industry expert. The chief executive of the Producers Alliance for Cinema and Television told Holyrood's Culture Committee that the plans to sell Channel 4 would cost the economy £4.2 billion, with knock-on effects in Scotland's thriving production sector. John McVeigh described the plans as a disaster for Scotland's creative sector, and that opportunities for new talent and firms to be set up will be diminished because Channel 4 is a key incubator for new talent. Commenting, the SNP MSP Jenny Minto said, "It is extremely concerning to hear about the devastating impact that the planned sale of Channel 4 will have on Scotland's creative sector, which has for years produced and nurtured an immense amount of Scottish talent. Channel 4 is an integral and critical part of the sector, providing independent broadcasting companies a platform they would not otherwise have. Without it, their opportunities will be vastly reduced, and talent will be lost. Channel 4 also provides a platform for voices and faces we would not normally see on our screens, vital in ensuring better representation across the country." She continued, "The only reason Channel 4 faces privatisation is because of a petty vendetta against it by the Tories, led by Nadine Dorries." The MSP Natalie Dawn has launched a consultation for a members' bill that would right the historic wrong of witchcraft convictions and give a legal pardon to those convicted of witchcraft in Scotland. The SNP members' bill seeks to issue a pardon for thousands of people, mainly women, convicted for witchcraft in Scotland after nearly 300 years, and this is following the First Minister's formal posthumous apology to those accused, convicted, vilified or executed under the Witchcraft Act of 1563 earlier this year. Campaigners have been trying to secure a legal pardon for the estimated 2,500 people who were convicted and executed under Scotland's Witchcraft Act for 200 years. It is thought that about 4,000 Scots were accused of breaking the law, which was in force from 1563 until 1736. About 85% of those convicted were women. Commenting, the SNP MSP Natalie Dawn said, "The recent formal apology from the First Minister on International Women's Day was welcomed by campaigners in Scotland and recognised around the world as a statement of intent. It was a powerful and incredibly important first step in righting the historic wrong of witchcraft accusations, arrests and executions. My members' bill will hopefully be the next step towards that, and, if passed, it will make clear that the people convicted of witchcraft all those years ago should never have faced the injustice of being labelled as criminals." And a new report has been published examining the social return on investment generated by Glasgow's Helping Heroes, which is a partnership between SSAFA, the Armed Forces charity, and Glasgow City Council. The person-centred service, which supports vulnerable members of the armed forces community across Glasgow, delivers £6.63 of social return on investment for every pound invested in the support services. The findings illustrated a range of SROI values from analysis of data from pre-COVID years that indicated that the social value figure in normal conditions would be approximately £11.68p. The independent report, titled "Glasgow's Helping Heroes, a vital service enabling our armed forces community to thrive," was funded by the Forces in Mind Trust and carried out by Dr. Steve Rolfe and a team of researchers from the Universities of Stirling and Glasgow Caledonian University. Conducted over a 2-year period beginning in January 2020, the core conclusion from the evaluation was that GHH is providing a service which is highly valued by clients, delivering substantial social value in terms of outcomes related to housing, finance, employment, resilience, and mental well-being. Launched in 2010, GHH has helped 2,210 members of Glasgow's Armed Forces community since its inception. In 2021, the service supported more than 300 people across the city, with beneficiaries' issues ranging from food and fuel poverty to poor mental health and well-being, housing eviction, and unemployment. Whilst veterans and other members of the armed forces community are not radically different from the civilian population, and the majority thrive in civilian life, there are some aspects of service life which can create challenges for a small minority. This report explores the issues arising from service life as well as the particular aspects of the GHH model which are crucial in transforming lives. The findings suggest that services need to be tailored in specific ways to meet these distinctive needs of veterans. The report also found that understanding the impact of service life for some veterans lies at the heart of the success of the GHH model. Dr. Steve Rolfe from the University of Stirling said, "Our research demonstrates the enormous impact that Glasgow's Helping Heroes has for veterans and other members of the armed forces community in the area. This is a credit to the hard work and dedication of the GHH team, especially during the challenging conditions of the pandemic. Equally importantly, this evaluation highlights the value of a holistic, person-centered service. When life throws up difficulties, services like GHH can help veterans to navigate the complex world of civilian services. Building on these findings will help SSAFA and the armed forces charity sector more broadly to meet the needs of veterans in Glasgow and elsewhere." Rachel Tribble, the manager of Glasgow's Helping Heroes, said, "We knew that our service was of vital importance, but until this evaluation we didn't have the evidence base to back that up. This evaluation will enable us to plan our resourcing for the future, to demonstrate our effectiveness to potential funders, and, most significantly, to ensure we can support our clients in the best possible way." And that was our final item this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station, and to make new programmes for you. If you would like to support us, then please subscribe or donate to Broadcasting Scotland if you can. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. You will see our appeals for financial assistance on Facebook and Twitter because the urgent need for financial support has not gone away. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Meantime, I will be here again tomorrow evening with the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please tune in and join us again then. And that's the way it is at very nearly Scotland at 7:28. Thank you to everyone who has been watching this evening. I hope that you have a very peaceful evening and that you can join us again here on Broadcasting Scotland very soon. Bye bye.